Hello. If you're new here, my name is Elizaveta Boals and I am a bookkeeper for construction business owners. And on this channel, we explore the strategies and tools that help us run successful businesses and live happier, more productive lives. So in this video today, I would like to talk about the 80-20 principle, also known as Pareto Principle. The Pareto Principle of 80-20 rule states that 20% of all inputs are responsible for 80% of all the outputs. So it applies in business and personal life to help you focus on what's most important and get more done with less time. And in this video, I'll show you how to use it to your advantage. So what is Pareto Principle exactly? The Pareto law is a principle that states that 80% of the effect comes from 20% of what we do. It can be applied to pretty much any aspect of life, such as work, relationships, and the concept leads us to conclude that not all things are equal, and some have greater significance than others. So we often focus on what's not working or what's broken in our lives instead of looking at the things that actually work. You know, it's a human nature when we have to concentrate on the negative. It's our brains are normally focused on the negative because it's like a survivor mechanism and it just switches on. So what we're not aware of most of the time are little things that we do that contribute to our success. So there are countless examples of 80-20 rule, and it's possible to see both Pareto Principle in business and Pareto Principle in life. So some of the examples that are my favorite that have molded my perspective about this whole powerful mind thing is, for example, only 20% of bugs created by 80% of crashes for Microsoft Office users. Another one that I really liked is, according to the United Nations, about 20% of our world's population is responsible for 80% of its wealth. Here's a personal one. You probably only wear 20% of the clothes in your wardrobe 80% of the time because, well, at least it's about me, I know. You're never sure when you'll need to look professional for an interview, for example, or first date, or those, you know, there's always a room for new outfits on those days that everything seems to be possible. And you just can't have too much good fashion karma, you know? So here's another one. You spend 80% of your time with 20% of people that you know. You are also likely to socialize and associate more frequently with a few close friends rather than being friendly towards everyone around you. In construction, 20% of your hazards are most likely to cause 80% of possible injuries on site. So these numbers may shift and they don't exactly strictly always gonna be 80-20, but the thinking behind this principle is the same. The smallest things are the ones that create the most massive impact. So now that we have figured out the basics about the 80-20, let's get down to business, literally. Applying 80-20 in our business can create massive ripples to our success. And here's one example. One of my favorite examples in business is that 20% of your clients generate 80% of your profits. In short, quality matters versus quantity, right? We already know that rule. So when I first started out in my bookkeeping business, I marketed the heck out of my company, but made classic beginner mistake. I said yes to everyone in the hopes that the more I'm booked, the happier I'd be, because more clients equals more money. Yes? Well, not necessarily, it turns out. Not all the clients were the right clients. So what happened was, despite having, say, 10 clients on my plate, most of them paid me bare minimum. So if I had to get to the goal of $5,000, for example, most of them only paid me roughly $200 a month, and that would only amount of $2,000. So that means that if I wanted to reach that 5K at the beginning, on the average of 200 per client, I would need 25 clients. That's way too many for just one me. So at that point, I was just doing basic bookkeeping recording transactions, and I was moving to get in as many clients, but I really got burned out fast. So that principle really changed my whole business model. I sat down and I started to analyze all of my clients because I knew that only 20% of them are generating 80% of my profits. I also looked at the industries that I was most helpful in, and I looked at what customers have been the most responsive and appreciative of the work that I did for them. And after that, I knew exactly who that 20% was and decided to get me more of those people to work with. So I started to offer even better quality and more wide services and raise my prices, and I marketed myself to construction business owners now. And I also picked the construction business owner that had a specific revenue value so they could afford my rates and who had a mindset ready for a better change and willing to actually work on that change. So it worked. Now I only work with a handful of clients who help me hit my target income each month while I pay my team and I pay myself on top of that. So that's what you should be thriving to get closer to. And this is only one example of how 80-20 works in the business, and it was incredibly life-changing for me. And I sleep more, I spend more time with my daughter, and I'm able to save some money up to put it back into the business, right? So we grow and thrive. So now after we've evaluated our customer base or how many clients we are able to cater to, the next step is looking at our products and services more closely, because sometimes it's the simplest service that can generate the biggest issues. I had a client who used to do full home renovations, and because of the scope of work needed to complete the full renovations, he had to hire many types of subcontractors: drywall, a subcontractor, roofing, electrical, plumbing, you know the drill. So because of his subcontractors that repeatedly didn't deliver and would only do the bare minimum, so some tasks had to be redone, which meant even more cost and more time, which was very damaging for his reputation as well. The complaints from customers started to really pile up, and incrementally the small complaints, when added up, turned into bigger ones and required more expenses. It just started really hurting his business. So eventually, when we talked about it, we decided to look and pick which services he hasn't been getting any complaints from and which services gained the most positive feedback from the customers. So he realized that the job he's been getting 80% of negative client feedback were from only the 20% of his services. So he focused on the jobs that were done according to high quality standards and began to see the positive change in his business. So another example, the business example that I can give you is 20% of services provide 80% of profit. So in relation to this experience, another way that 80-20% comes into play, I can give you the example. I once talked about this actually in one of my LinkedIn posts about how important it is to figure out which niche, the specialty in construction, generates you the most profit. And it's the same way why lawyers pick one specialty, right? They're either criminal, personal injury, family law, or the doctors when they pick if they're going into pediatric, oncology, and cardiology. You just have to pick one. Why is that? Because then you can devote your time and energy into one simple thing. And you wouldn't be spreading yourself too thin. And if you haven't niched down yet, I would recommend try to take a look at all of your past projects and see which ones brought you the most profit. Maybe look at residential renovations versus commercial. Where have you done better? Maybe you need to do just roofing all along, or just spec home building, or was it just doing bathrooms and kitchens? And when you realize where the margins were the highest, that's your winner. You just have to list them all down, look at the numbers, and once you figure it out, just start focusing all of your marketing efforts and sales efforts in that single niche. And this is what I've also applied to my business. So now I only look for specific construction business owners instead of having to sell the services to everybody. So another good example is choose 20% of activities that will generate 80% of your profits. Have you noticed that person who sits in the office all day may accomplish less than the person who is working remotely and who can really focus for just a couple of hours? And most things in life are not evenly distributed, we know that, but as rational human beings, we want to get as much done and complete the most tasks possible in less time. And although it can be difficult to just grasp this whole concept like Pareto's Principle at first glance, this idea may reshape your approach towards certain situation that you face every day. When one of my clients had a bookkeeper on staff, the 9 to 5 regular situation employee that he paid taxes on, but he noticed that the more time that employee had on his hands, the less things were getting done. So he hired me, who worked only part-time and got all the tasks done with way less hours. And he not only saved money on the payroll and taxes, he also got better services because he got a person who was very focused on what they needed to do and knew exactly how to do it. And here's another quick story for you. A client of mine used to do so much, from marketing even to bookkeeping, since he had an accounting background. He was doing project management, he was doing estimates, literally everything. So as CEO of the company, his main focus is to generate money for his company. And these money-making activities, they include sales and networking. So those are the two most important and time-consuming tasks that only CEO, the face of the company, can do. But obviously, he couldn't devote all his time into these activities because he was too busy doing everything. And after he started to outsource and hired more help, hired me in the process, yes, he had to spend money, but he ended up increasing his profits almost 25% the following year because he no longer had to do everything himself. And he was able to focus that 20% of his time on income generating activities. And before COVID hit, he also had the time and resources to attend all the conventions, so he was able to talk more about his company in person too, and network and meet new people who really helped him grow. So I like another example. My client once took a vacation, and you know what happened? I remember he called me from vacation, and it was quite unusual to hear from him. He was out fishing with his family, and he couldn't believe that he signed 2 more projects after devoting only 20% of his time focusing on getting those 2 projects. And because he made the introductions, had the initial meetings, and delegated the rest of the tasks that, his cold leads were getting warmer through those people that he outsourced to, and he didn't have to do anything, and he finished what he could before he went on vacation. So the rest of the 80% of his time of that week, he was able to spend with his family on vacation. So long story short, this is a perfect example of the Pareto Principle at play. He had delegated most of his time-consuming tasks that used to prevent him from going to vacations, and he booked 2 projects, which got him sold out for the next quarter. So what did 28% of his efforts look like? Just networking and marketing. And he didn't have to even go door to door. He didn't spend so much time focusing on his other projects by driving to each project site day to day and doing the estimates. And it just proves you that you don't have to be afraid to do things that make you happy, like taking a vacation where you can recharge and relax and come out with more productive and focused and keep generating more income. The lesson behind 80-20 basically is that time is spent wisely by focusing more on what provides greater return for yourself and less on those little details that might seem very important but really have not that much value. There are several ways to really organize your day, and one of them is setting up the goals. Here's how I normally do mine. As a woman of less, being a mom and a business owner, that requires a lot of organization on my part, so I don't drive myself crazy. And I remember reading the article of Brian Tracy. He had very simple steps laid out on how to do it. First, what you do is you write down your top 10 goals. And you ask yourself which one of these goals would create the most positive impact on your life. Just pick one and highlight it. Next, choose the second most important goal with the same question in mind. Before you know it, you have focused on the most significant 20% of your goals that you need to accomplish above everything else. And the rest are just, nice to do things that will give you more dopamine, that you have completed more stuff throughout your day, right? So I also would like to speak about how you can use this 80-20 principle in your life. So in your life, for goal settings, there are other useful methods with setting daily goals and prioritizing your tasks. I know that as a business owner, the task list never just seems to get short, isn't it? So it's clear that many people struggle with feeling overwhelmed by their tasks, so they get to work and start, hacking away at some task without just considering whether or not they have time to even do them all. So here are the ways you can use Pareto Principle to help you organize your day and reduce overwhelm. The same hacks I've been doing with my clients during the consultations. Whenever they feel very overwhelmed, here's what I offer. You should try focusing on doing 20% again, right, of most important tasks. Here's the hint. Tasks you usually avoid tend to be the tasks you must do. And so if you do them first, I would even say do them first thing in the morning before you do anything else. And because being busy is most often used as a reason for avoiding the few critically important tasks, but they feel very uncomfortable. So whenever I'm starting my day like this, my brain feels refreshed after just, getting a couple things done, because there's still a lot left in my day that I could do. And it just makes me feel better, and those important tasks just get handled. Or you can try dividing up what needs to be done into 4 categories, also called Eisenhower matrix. I don't know if you heard about this one. The first one is the column would have urgent and important tasks, the ones that you have to do ASAP. Then urgent but not important. Those are usually really good to delegate or outsource it to someone else. So the third one is important but not urgent. So those you decide when you'll do these tasks later on. And not urgent, not important, that's the fourth one. Do it later or get rid of it. So it can look like a quadrant, if you'd like to draw it on a piece of paper. And any task that fails into urgent and important should be the highest priority. And the rest is just white noise, basically. So whatever you feel like your brain is just so cluttered with overwhelm, you need to do like a brain dump, write all of your tasks out and categorize them into those 4 buckets. And this will surely help you look at what's truly important, both in your life and in the business too. And these hacks can be applied pretty much to any life situation. So the 80-20 principle can be applied to many parts of life. Consider asking yourself questions like, which 20% of my friends are leading to 80% of my happiness? Or which 20% of my social circle is leading to 80% of drama and stress, for example? Which 20% of the content can I study that will provide me 80% of better performance on a job? which 20% of the sources are causing 80% of my problems and unhappiness. See, you can apply that to pretty much anywhere in your life and business. When I did that exact exercise in my life, I experienced some pretty dramatic results. With my personal life, I realized that a huge part of my long-term happiness was a result of just time invested to certain activities like exercise, reading for pleasure, and spending time with my daughter. So I've gotten better, although probably pretty far from perfect, at scheduling those activities first. And I've learned to eliminate less important activities like watching the news, useless meetings, or unimportant phone calls and emails. And you know, if you think about it, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And yet, why is that others seems to be more accomplishing more in those 24 hours and are able to spend time with their families and focus on their hobbies, and we can't? The idea behind the Pareto Principle is not just about efficiency, but rather finding that balance between the work and play and putting more emphasis on enjoyable activities while still staying productive with essential ones when necessary, and going beyond simply just living within financial means of just making that mortgage payment. We should also live and be happy with the way we're living, you know. And it's about focusing on things that bring us a lot of happiness and fulfillment. I know it sounds very cheesy, but think about it. Most people who are just doing their 9-to-5 jobs, and because they have to work to survive, they focus so much time on their work and they come home and cranky and exhausted. They don't have time to spend with their kids and their family, and because they were working all day, they're out of strength, and then in the morning they have to do it all over again and drive to work. So we all got into businesses because we don't want this. We want to be happy. We want to have more freedom and time for our families, and 80-20 principle really supports that goal. So to summarize, here are the general steps to apply 80-20 rule to any part of your life or business. Identify all your daily, weekly tasks. Identify key tasks. What are the tasks that give you the most return, no matter if it's profit for business or happiness in your life? And brainstorm how you can reduce or transfer the tasks that give you the least return. And I would say create a plan to do more that brings you more value, and use that 80-20 to prioritize any projects you're working on. Set a plan, to focus on producing more results. The 80-20 principle is truly life-changing, both in our personal and professional lives, and we live every day just going through the notions of life, not noticing what we choose to think about and prioritize until we just stop, we take a breather, or even write everything down to help us gain more clarity. And it all boils down to awareness. That's the first step. And are we truly aware of what we need to focus on? The next step is to see if our actions align with our goals. Are we moving towards our goals or away from them? And finally, what are we planning to do to help achieve that 80% of whatever we want to achieve? That is it for today. Please let me know in the comments what you think about it. Have you tried to apply 80-20 principle to your personal or business life? And don't forget to like this video if you found this information helpful, and subscribe not to miss more of my content. Thank you for watching.